Hello there, my name is Mr. Smardonkey. Welcome to another episode of Weapons of the Wasteland. Once again, thank you all very much for your support and feedback on the last episode. This episode I'll be taking a look at the Laser Musket, a very strong gun you can get your hands on really early on in the game. So first of all, we're going to have a look at the scopes, of course. So we're going to start off with the iron sights, or the regular standard scope, basically. Then we have the glow. As always, just adds a few green dots. We have the reflex sight. I really like this one. It's just a basic reflex sight with a circle. Then we have the regular scoped, so we have short, medium, and long versions of this, of course, but I'm just going to show off the one, because there's no reason to show off all of them. Night vision, makes sense. This shows stuff in the night clearer. So once again, we have short, medium, and long range for this. And then we have the Recon scope, so this tracks targets. If you hover over a target, it'll show up a little icon so you can see where he is. And there's a short and long range for this scope. There's no medium one for this one. So let's have a look at the regular laser musket, or the short laser musket in action. So the regular laser musket is basically short, just like with the double barrel shotgun. It just, when it's standard, it's called short for whatever reason. But anyway, statistics, 30 damage. So this is 30 damage per shot. So if you crank it twice, it actually does 60 damage. It uses cells, which all laser weapons use as far as I'm aware. Fire rate of 6, which is essentially unimportant because it doesn't really do anything. It just however many times you can crank, or how fast you can crank and fire shots is your fire rate, basically. Range of 71, not amazing, but this will definitely go up once we get to the longer range barrels. Accuracy 70, that's pretty good though. I mean, it is a fairly accurate weapon, standard, and the rest of course is irrelevant, although the weight is something to keep in mind. 12.6 standard is pretty heavy for a weapon, so I mean, it does a lot of damage, but it's a pretty heavy weapon to carry with you, that's for sure. But anyway, so as you can see, we take care of enemies fairly quickly. The cranking can get a little annoying, especially when we get to the higher number of cranks, because you have to constantly, for each one you crank, you have to basically press the reload button, whatever it be on whatever you play as. For me on PC, obviously it's R, so you have to press it several times to crank it, and sometimes when you're pressing other buttons at the same time, it can actually get a little annoying. But generally it's fine, especially when you only have 2 cranks, so it does fairly well, and we take care of most enemies without too much problem, or without too many problems even, and this removing goes down as well. So we've seen the standard short laser musket in action. It's time to perform some upgrades. So the laser musket's actually one of the more boring weapons, if you will, when upgrading, because there's not really a whole lot of choice, to be honest. So for the capacitor, we're going to start with a free crank capacitor. This is the, oh right, before I forget, no requirements for this first upgrade, or for these first upgrades that we're going to do. So yeah, you can just make this straight from the get-go. But yeah, free crank capacitor. So basically what this means is that you get 1 extra shot before you can fire. So you basically can fire 3 shots instead of 2 at the same time, because the way this weapon works, as you've already seen and you probably know, is that you crank it up and then you fire however many times you crank the weapon, that's how many shots you fire, and each shot does the base amount of damage, basically. So if the damage is 30, you crank twice, it does 60 damage. If you crank 3 times, it does 90 damage, etc, etc. So the reason this is a fairly boring weapon is because a capacitor only ever does this, basically. So it's only just a higher number of cranks. So it ups the damage by a pretty big amount, but it's a fairly boring thing to upgrade. So yeah, we're going to go for the free crank, because that's the only thing that requires only, or that doesn't have any requirements, basically. And then 4 crank requires rank 1 of science, rank 2, rank 3. So for the barrel, we're going to go with the bracketed short barrel, because again, the rest requires higher stuff. So bracketed short barrel increases the range, or improves the range even. We could go for the extended short barrel, but there's literally no reason to go for this as far as I'm aware. So what it does, it removes the muzzle slot, but it doesn't require any more resources to make the bracketed short barrel. The stats are exactly the same, except this one removes the muzzle slot, so I don't see any reason why you would ever want to go for the extended short barrel over the bracketed short barrel. But anyway, we're going to go for that. For the stock now, this is another one, like, it's fairly boring because there's not really any choice here. The thing is, you don't even have to really get this. This improves the recoil, but it's a one-shot gun, so recoil is never really going to be an issue. So this improves the weight, it takes a whole bunch of resources, so if you don't want to go for the full stock, don't go for it. It really doesn't do much. I'm going to go for it because I have infinite resources, so I don't mind. But yeah, this is not something you need to really get, because it really doesn't do much at all. The sights, we're going to go for the Reflex sight, because I like the Reflex sight a lot in this game. We can actually go for a short scope as well, but I think, I mean, it's definitely a possibility, but I like going for the Reflex sight. I just like it. It's just a good one. It's still short range. It doesn't have any magnification, but I prefer that in some way. I've gone over this before, but yeah. For some reason, the glow sights is actually a possibility as well, but it's all the way down here. I don't know why it's like this one is a bit random, like the stuff all over the place. Here, for example, you see this requires gun nut rank 2. This one requires gun nut rank 1 again, so it's just a bit like all over the place. And then the glow sights are all the way down here. It is an option, but I'm not going to go for it. I'm going to go for the reflex sight. And then we're not going to have any muzzle because these all require science rank 1. So this is the only thing that really differentiates the weapon. Is the muzzle, which one you decide to go for. So we'll be having a look at those on the next weapons, but for now this is the tactical free crank laser musket. So let's see what the tactical free crank laser musket can do. So first, the first most important thing about this weapon is now it has free crank, so you can actually do triple the damage. So the damage is still 30, but it doesn't actually matter because of course you crank it 3 times now. It does 90 damage instead of 30 per, or it still does 30 per shot, but it does 90 instead of 60 when you can only crank it twice. Fire rate's the same, doesn't matter though. Range 107 and accuracy 77, both have gone up a little bit, especially the range, and the weight has gone up a little bit as well, so it's definitely something to keep in mind. It does become a very, very heavy weapon, but it's definitely worth it. It's a very strong weapon. You of course find this weapon really early on in the game as well, so that's quite good. So it's at the point right now that I managed to kill this super mutant in one hit with a sneak attack on the head, but I didn't show that footage because I feel like it would be unfair because other weapons might not get that in one shot. It wouldn't be as much fun. So you've seen the tactical free crank laser musket in action. It's time to do some more upgrades. So for these upgrades we require science rank 1. So for the capacitor we're going to go for the 4 crank capacitor. Basically this, this just do whatever you have the science for basically, because there's really no reason not to go for a higher crank, because you can actually crank as many times as you want. So even if you have the 6 crank capacitor, you can crank it once or twice, or however many times you want, up to 6 basically. So yeah, just go for whatever your science allows basically. But for now, because I'm making guns for different science levels, we're going to go for 4 crank capacitor, which requires science rank 1. For the barrel, we're going to go for the bracketed short barrel again, sorry. Because the reason is this is going to be sort of like a shotgun laser musket. There's, again, the muzzle really decides what the weapon will become, and the short barrel just makes a little more sense because this reduces the hipfire accuracy, and we want to actually, for a shotgun, you want to have decent hipfire accuracy. So we're going to go for the bracketed short barrel. For the stock, once again, full stock, don't go for it if you don't want to waste the resources, which is definitely a good thing, or a decision you can make. For the sight, we're going to go for the reflex sight again, but that's because this is a shotgun type weapon. On a shotgun type weapon, you don't want to have something like a night vision, well, yeah, you don't want to have a scope on it, basically. You just want to have like a little sight, so we're going to go for the reflex sight. And for the muzzle, now this is where it basically changes the weapon into a shotgun. We're going to go for the beam splitter. So the beam splitter splits beam into multiple projectiles covering a wider area. Poor accuracy and range, so the stats go down a tremendous amount, but it becomes more of a shotgun. Now I have to say, I'll talk about this in the footage of the actual fighting as well. I'm not a big fan of this actually, but I wanted to show off different kinds of muzzles. But yeah, I'm not a big fan, because why split up the damage if you can just have it all be in one place? Like, I don't really see the point in this. But it's a fun weapon to use. It's a different type of weapon to use. But yeah, we'll have a look at those other ones in a minute. I'm actually not going to be using the gyro compensating lens at all. It just adds superior recoil. Completely useless and reduces the range. I don't see the point of this at all. So we're going to go for a beam splitter on this one, and that will make the scattered 4 crank laser musket. So now it's time to see the scattered 4 crank laser musket in action. So this is essentially a shotgun, as I already mentioned earlier, which means that it's not going to be as good at further range, but at close range, of course, it will be stronger. You can see right there, just don't even have to aim. I mean, he's right, it's literally point blank range, but yeah, we don't have to really aim down sights, which is why I didn't bother putting a better scope on this, because it just doesn't really do much. You can see there, by the way, he was pretty close to us, and it barely did any damage, which means that only one shot basically hit, and the rest just missed for whatever reason. One of the feral ghouls was down here, stuck, but I didn't really feel like re-recording that because it doesn't really matter. As you can see there, like the Raider, that one was it was basically the same distance as before, but sometimes it does hit, and when it does hit, it does a ton of damage, because the damage has gone up from 30 to 33. Fire rate's the same, range 83 is actually not terrible. Accuracy of 34 is pretty crap though, that guy's head's slashed off. And then Super Mutant, fairly easy if you can get close to him. At a distance though, he can become a problem, because again, it is a shotgun, so it's definitely something to keep in mind. So we've seen the scattered 4 crank laser musket in action. It's time to do the final upgrade. So for these upgrades, you require science rank 3 and gun nut rank 2. Now keep in mind though, the gun nut rank 2 only comes into play on the scope, and the science only comes into play on the crank capacitor, so we're going to go for the 6 crank capacitor. I'm just going to skip the 5 crank because there's nothing else that requires science rank 2, so we're just going to go straight for science rank 3. But again, just go for whatever this allows you, or whatever your science skill allows you, basically. For the barrel, this time we're going to go for the bracketed long barrel. So again, there's really no reason to go for the extended long barrel, and this one actually does have a reason, or a slight reason, which is that this one doesn't require as many resources as this one does. But still, it's no real reason. Actually, it's funny that this one requires 1 less adhesive, but it requires more circuitry and glass. I don't know, it's whatever. But yeah, just go for the bracketed long barrel. This one is, again, it gets rid of the muzzle slot, and you don't want that to happen because it's like you want the muzzle slot to, you want it used because it's a good, it's what defines the weapon basically. So we're gonna go for the bracketed long barrel. Stock, once again, full stock, but don't go for it if you don't want to waste the resources. Now the scope, now we're going to go for a long recon scope. So we have several choices now. We could go for a night vision scope, we could go, or for a recon scope, we could go for, I mean, different ranges for the scope, but we're just going to go for a long recon scope. This is like, because this is going to be a proper sniper rifle, well, a sniper laser musket, if you will. So we're going to go for that, but yeah, this is a personal preference. If you want to go for night vision, go for night vision. If you want to go for a shorter or a medium, go for shorter or a medium. But I'm just going to go for long because it's like a sniper rifle. It sort of makes sense. And then for the muzzle, we're going to go for the beam focuser. So this adds range, accuracy, and recoil. Again, recoil unimportant, but the range and accuracy is important for a sniper rifle, of course. So that is the Recon 6 crank laser musket. And last but not least, the Recon 6 crank laser musket in action. So this basically is a one-hit kill on everything. You need to keep in mind though, whenever you're shooting at these guys, don't crank it up to 6 times. I keep doing it, but it doesn't actually need to happen because 1 or 2 shots can already take these guys out. Damage has gone up to 32. I need to speed this up because it goes very quick. It goes by very quick, and now I'm stumbling over words. Anyway, fire rate's the same. 239 range though has gone up a lot, obviously. I mean, it's a sniper rifle, so what do you expect? Accuracy 111 is probably the best we've seen so far. And yeah, you can see everything dies in 1 hit because I'll keep cranking it up max, but I really don't have to do that. And then the last kill is a super mutant, is actually just a 1-shot, so yeah, that's why I needed to crank or speed this up basically. So here's the comparison between the laser muskets this week. So keep in mind that I actually have the cranking as part of the timing because I think that, I mean, it's important because if you crank more, it's obviously going to take more time. Also keep in mind that I crank it fully every time I shoot. So the sniper rifle may have been second, but it actually did more damage with the first shot than the shotgun did. It's just that I cranked it up 6 times again before firing the second shot, which is why it came second. Otherwise, it probably would have been first. Thank you all once again very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Please let me know which gun you'd like to see me use next, and until then, have a good day and goodbye.